And now turning to our program, please welcome Wendell Willis, Managing Director of Milwaukee Bucks and Freighter Health Equity Initiative, to introduce our speaker.
Thank you, President Kent, and good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. There we go. Come on. You're not in the food coma yet, right? Come on. All right. It is my pleasure to introduce you to one of the newest members of the Milwaukee Bucks organization, Team President Josh Glessing. It is fitting that he's speaking at Rotary, given his formative years were spent in Racine, the city, or I should say Racine, the same city as Rotary founder Paul Harris. Josh returns to Wisconsin after holding notable roles with Goldman Sachs and more recently with Haslam Sports Group, where he served as their Chief of Strategy and Development, along with a stint as President of Business Operations for the Columbus Crew. I should also mention that includes winning a third Major League Soccer title under his watch. Josh's prior roles offer a breadth of varying industries centered on investment and growth in the areas of sports, entertainment, media, technology, and real estate. I'm happy to report that it didn't take Josh very long to fit in with us. In just over 60 days, he's not only mastered the coffee machine, he's also figured out the Jumbotron at Fiserv Forum. And for the right amount, he's willing to put you on the screen as well. Just don't ask him about locking the doors or turning off the lights. He hasn't figured out that part yet. In all seriousness, I've enjoyed getting to know Josh, and it's been fun working alongside him to better our community. It also takes a lot of trust to know a guy in 70 days to give the microphone to introduce, and because he doesn't know what I'm going to say or what I'm going to do. So I appreciate that, Josh. I know as he spends more time in Milwaukee and being with many of you, that you will definitely enjoy collaborating with Josh, as his enthusiasm and energy and excitement in business and community is contagious. Josh is truly committed to expanding the impact and the reach of the Bucks, leading with a growth mindset so this team can remain a championship organization both on and off the court. Please give a warm Rotary welcome to the Milwaukee Bucks president, Josh Glessing.
Thanks, Wendell, and sorry, unlike Saj, you were not able to introduce a rocket scientist this afternoon. Considerably less qualified. I also should have looked at this deck before I came up here, so I could have a sense of what I'm presenting on. But I appreciate the warm welcome, not just from the Rotary and the people in this room, but also from the city of Milwaukee. So I'll talk a little bit about my background, who I am as a person. From there, we'll talk about the Milwaukee Bucks as an organization and the continued commitment on behalf of the Bucks to the community, to the city of Milwaukee, to the state of Wisconsin. So, as Wendell said, I was born and raised in Racine, Wisconsin, or born in Manitowoc, Wisconsin, grew up in Racine, Wisconsin, went to Racine Park High School, and admittedly, when I left for college in Indiana, I wanted to get as far away from Wisconsin as possible. It was something I was focused on, and fortunately, along the way, I met a woman from La Crosse, Wisconsin, who was also trying to get as far away from Wisconsin as possible. And you know what it took for us both was to live someplace else, to see the rest of the country, to see the rest of the world, to truly appreciate what Wisconsin has to offer, what the Midwest has to offer. And I think, but for leaving, and I'll talk a little bit about my journey since I left Racine, but for leaving, the ability for us to appreciate what this state has and the people in this state never happens. So we're so grateful for the experiences. So went to Indiana University, thought I wanted to be a lawyer. I've got degrees in public affairs and sociology, found out what lawyers did, and no offense to the lawyers in the room, realized it was one, not for me, and two, I was probably unqualified to do it. So I turned my focus to what most people do when they figure out they can't be lawyers. I turned my focus to finance. So I started my career at a municipal bond trading desk and traded muni bonds. Graduated from Indiana, lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, eventually moved from Charlotte to Los Angeles, where I got off the desk and I was doing advisory work, and I worked on some structured transactions that were ultimately to the benefit of sports teams. And I worked on one transaction, sat across the table from Goldman Sachs, and the head of Goldman Sports Entertainment Investment Banking Practice called me and said, "Hey, would you be interested in moving to New York, sitting on the other side of the table, advising teams and owners on a whole host of things, including public dollars for private projects, M&A transactions, media transactions, financings?" So that sounds great. Moved from Los Angeles to New York. Actually was back here in Milwaukee shortly after I moved to New York, and met a friend of mine who had never been to New York City, but just assumes all people from Wisconsin live on the same city block in Midtown Manhattan. I said, "Oh, do you ever see Sarah McAdam?" I said, "I don't know who that is." And I looked her up on Facebook. We were Facebook friends. We'd actually met freshman year of college on spring break in Daytona Beach, Florida. And this person who had married a friend of mine lived in the dorm room next door to Sarah McAdam. So I sent her a Facebook message, and she slow played it. Eventually, we met at a hole-in-the-wall bar in the West Village called Kettle of Fish, which is a Wisconsin bar in the West Village, and the rest is history. But at that point, I'm at Goldman Sachs, representing teams and owners on a whole host of things. And for the first time in my life, I had what was my Milwaukee Bucks full circle moment. In 2014, I represented Mark Lasry and Wes Edens as part of their acquisition of the Bucks to do all of the financing for Fiserv Forum. I had seen other stadiums and arenas be built, and I knew a bunch of the sports architects. So Wes and Mark asked me if I would join them on the roadshow to meet all of the architects, to meet all of the contractors. So I was actually in the room in Kansas City where all the sports architects are when we interviewed all of the architects, and I saw the first images for what is now Fiserv Forum, including all the other images that didn't ultimately win the bid. So I was in that room working at Goldman Sachs, living in New York City, financed the building, was at the groundbreaking, was at the ribbon cutting. And through all of that, I thought that was my Milwaukee Bucks, Wisconsin story coming full circle. And it was truly surreal to me to even have an opportunity to be around this thing that was so impactful, important to me growing up. And I did that at Goldman for a few more years. And in 2018, going into 2019, I advised the Haslam family on acquiring the Columbus Crew. And the Columbus Crew, an MLS team with a great history in Columbus, but was on the cusp of being relocated to Austin. Advised him on that project and was having dinner with Jimmy Haslam as part of the process. And I was traveling all over the world 3 to 6 days a week, every single week. We had our first kid in the city. And Jimmy and I got to talking, and he said, "Would you move to Cleveland and build a venture strategy, real estate strategy, and run our M&A?" I went back to my wife and said, "What do you think about Cleveland?" And she said, "Absolutely not, but I'd go to Columbus, Ohio." So we left. We had our first kid in the city, and the things you appreciate when you're in the city. One of a story I tell often about something that was just so normal at the time. With our first kid, we took the subway to the hospital because that was the fastest way to the hospital. We had a terrible experience. Unfortunately, it ended in my wife having an emergency C-section. Baby was fine. In the hospital for 5 days. Walked outside of the hospital. My wife had just had major surgery. I'm holding our newborn baby. I try to get my wife to cross the road to catch a southbound cab. She's like, no, we can catch a northbound cab that'll come all the way back around. So we're in a cab in New York City with our newborn. My wife just had a major surgery. It's like the first stranger that pulls up can take us home. And that was so normal at the time, but that was really the beginning of, man, there's something about the Midwest. Are we really going to raise kids here? And that really started the process for what's next. And that really started the process for us to go to Columbus, which was the Midwest, which was closer to home, and we could appreciate it in a way that we had otherwise never appreciated. So I was there. I stood up our venture business. I stood up our real estate business. I ran our M&A for Jimmy Haslam and his brother Bill. So Bill Haslam actually bought the Nashville Predators, which the original owner of that was a guy named Craig Leopold, who's from Racine. And in 2021 and 2, we'd actually made a strong push to acquire the Minnesota Timberwolves. Ultimately failed in that. But it was out there that we were interested in finding an NBA team. And I'd been around the Bucks a lot, and I knew a lot of the people in the business. And I was actually driving from Cleveland back to Columbus one day, and I got a phone call from a Sportico reporter, one of the big sports media outlets, and he asked me, I forget what he asked me, we were talking about, I said, "Is anything going on in the NBA?" He's like, "Well, as you know, Mark Lasry's selling his interest in the team." I said, "Of course I know that. It's my job to know that. Why wouldn't I know that?" And I made a phone call to a woman named Sarah Watterson, who works for Wes Edens. And I said, "Hey, I just got this phone call. Is Mark really looking to exit his interest in the Bucks?" He said, "Yes." So she and I and Peter Fagan set Wes Edens and Jimmy Haslam up on effectively a blind date. And it was a funny blind date just because it happened sitting courtside at a Bucks game. This was right before Christmas. 2022, my in-laws were in Columbus, and we're literally watching the first day play out. It was Jimmy and Dee and Wes and Elizabeth, and they're sitting courtside in Wes's seats, and we're watching it on the NBA League Pass. And we're reading the body language. Do they like each other? Do they not like each other? And we watched the whole thing play out, and afterwards you got phone calls from both sides. Like, that was really good. And then in April of 2023, closed on the Haslam's acquisition of Mark Lazzary's interest in the Bucks. And for me, I thought that was my Milwaukee Bucks story coming full circle again. This time, it's bigger than last time. I was in the room last time, but this is different. This is special. This is cool. And again, as a kid growing up with very little in Racine, Wisconsin, and if I was really lucky, I'd go to one Milwaukee Bucks game a year. If I was really, really lucky, I'd sit in the second from the last row of the upper bowl. And to be able to have this Milwaukee Bucks story come full circle for the second time was so surreal to me. It was so special to me. And I thought it was done. And then, late last year, Peter Fagan said, hey, my mother-in-law, my 2 adult children, my 2 brothers, they're all in New York City. I need to think about what's next for me. And Wes and Jimmy called and said, would you go back to Wisconsin? And, that was surreal to me on so many different levels. A lot of people are like, 15-year-old Josh Glessing, how would he react to know that you have this? It wasn't even on that guy's radar. The thought of that wasn't even something he could wrap his head around. He said, what's your dream job? I don't know what it would have been, probably lawyer, but it wouldn't have been this. So for me, for this third iteration of my Milwaukee Bucks relationship coming full circle is so special to me. The big difference is now I can screw it up. So in the last couple of instances, maybe that would have been a little bit harder. So it's been this one constant in my life, personally and professionally. When I lived in Columbus, Ohio, I played pickleball every Tuesday night with Michael Redd. That was another instance of just the Milwaukee Bucks being there in my life, and that was special to me. I was a big fan of Michael as a player. I'm a bigger fan of Michael as a person. I constantly remind him, and I think he believes I'm joking, of how I thought it was a bad decision to trade Ray Allen in favor of Michael taking the starting guard spot. But, I've had these special instances. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. He thinks I'm joking, but. So the Bucks have been so special to me, and one of the things I've said a lot. I have no clue what's on this next slide, so I could be covering it already. Let's take a look and come back. Oh, yeah, we'll go to that. One of the things about this job and how important this job is in the community is no matter who is doing this job, what they would say is, I've always been a fan of the Milwaukee Bucks and the brand of the Bucks, and I've always, when I was 26, I went to Milwaukee and I had a great time. What a special city and great people. No matter who was standing in front of you as the new president of the Milwaukee Bucks, that's what they would say. That's the script. That's the script that you read. That is the reality at any sports organization anywhere in America. My brother lives in Milwaukee. My mother lives in Racine. My sister lives in Kenosha. My in-laws live in La Crosse. I have been a Milwaukee Bucks fan for 40 years. I love this team. I love this city. I love this state. I had to leave to love the city and the state to the way that I can today. It's incredibly special, and it's a true honor. So from that, I've been on the job 2 months. Here's what I've learned. I've actually had the pleasure of meeting a lot of people in this room, and that's been really special to me. One, to just be reminded and meet so many people who care so deeply about this city and the state, and people in a position to make an impact in the city and the state, and to have a seat at the table to help make an impact in the city and state is something that I don't take lightly. But I've been listening and learning. We have Marla and Wendell can both say we've made no great proclamations of here's what we're going to do differently, because that's not the function of the first 60 days. And the beauty of today versus 12 years ago is the organization's on stable footing. Do we have things to improve on the court? Yes. I'm sure we'll get to that in the Q&A. I'm only taking questions as it relates to Giannis's defensive prowess. So no other Giannis-related questions. And that's been really, really fun and special. Again, for me to come back, like my mother to see me on the front of the newspaper. I mean, come on, it's an incredible thing. But I've been listening, I've been learning. And what I've been learning about is, we've got some challenges as an organization. Like we do have real things that we need to focus on as an organization. There are also things that are really important that we have to continue to do. And I'm excited that there's a fantastic team in place at the Bucks to help us go through that next phase and that next evolution. And what we've talked a lot about internally is it's an evolution, not a revolution. In 2014, when Mark and Wes and Peter came to Milwaukee, it was an evolution. I mean, period, it was an evolution. The team was on the cusp of leaving, and there were major changes that had to happen. But what our job is to do now on some level is to leverage the Milwaukee Bucks as a platform for good in the community, but also to shine a light on our city and our state. You know, you think about the championship in 2021, you know, but for that, does the rest of the world think about Milwaukee? Do they think about Wisconsin? You know, the Brewers is an incredible organization, but doesn't have the same global appeal. The Green Bay Packers is a behemoth, but does not have the same global appeal. You know, those are not watched on a global stage in the way that the NBA is. The NBA has a massive platform around the world. There are more people who watch the NBA in China than there are people in America. Right? This is a platform to do so much in terms of shining a light on our great city, but also for economic impact. You know, but for Fiserv Forum, is there a great hotel in that part of downtown with the second one coming this summer? Is there the Live Nation concert venue that's going to bring 4,500 person shows a year to that part of downtown? Is there, you know, in the coming weeks, we'll break ground on the second phase of yeah, in a couple of weeks. Oh, that's nice. In a couple of weeks, we'll break ground on the second phase of the multifamily project. We've got great ambitions for a commercial project as well. All of those things are spurred by Arena. It's so easy in some of these instances to get lost in the sports story, the championship story, the wins and losses story. But the reality is that facility is an economic driver in the city to bring events that otherwise would not have come to Milwaukee, to create and spur development in downtown Milwaukee, to bring jobs and to bring housing, affordable housing to downtown Milwaukee. So we have to think about it so much more as just a wins and losses and a sports story, because it's so much bigger than that. And that's the power of these sports organizations in the modern era. So you'll hear me say this a lot throughout the community, and we'll continue to lean into it, is win fan community, right? We want to win on the court, we want to take great care of our fans, and we want to give back to the community that gives us so much. So we're going to continue to focus on putting a compelling product on the court in the short term, but really focused on the long term and long-term sustainability. I think we've all gotten a taste of winning. We like it. It's fun. We are a hospitality business at our core. We're in the business of entertaining. Not everyone that comes to a Milwaukee Bucks game is coming to watch really technical 5-on-5 basketball. People are coming to be entertained, and it's our job to entertain. We are competing with so many different outlets for our consumers, their time and their disposable income, right? And we talk about this a lot. On New Year's Eve, people had the choice to watch the series finale of Stranger Things or come to a Milwaukee Bucks game, right? We are competing with people for their time, for their effort, their willingness to go on a family vacation or buy Bucks season tickets. Not only do we have to create a compelling product to make people want to do that, we also have to make it worth it, right? So that's so important to us to entertain, to take great care of our fans. And then with the Milwaukee Bucks organization, I'm sure people can critique it, but what they do in the community is incredible. My job is to not get my hands on it too much, because it's really, really powerful, and hopefully you all see that show up in the community. But we're going to continue to lean into the community that's given us so much. And then I'm grateful that I inherited an organization with incredible people. There are fantastic people across the organization, on the business side, on the basketball side, at the arena. We're going to continue to take great care of them as well, because they're the ones that really drive this business forward. So that's a lot. I don't know if I used a lot of punctuations. I appreciate you all having me here today. And at the risk of Giannis-related questions, I will open it up to Q&A.
Hi, Josh. Thanks so much for speaking today. I'm Carol. Okay, everybody, I'm the moderator. Anybody that would like to ask questions, please come up and line up. You have 30 seconds per question. I do set a timer. It will beep if you go over. Okay? All right, thanks.
Thanks for coming. Brent Taff-Wasson, MK Business Coach. Want to compare to the Brewers a little bit. The Brewers obviously have more total seat inventory, playing 81 games at home. And they do a lot with the community, inviting groups in, et cetera. I'm interested to know, kind of under your leadership, what your vision is for continuing to leverage the seats you have, both for Bucks games and some of the other venues, to continue to outreach in the community. I'm thinking about youth. I'm thinking about folks that maybe don't always get access opportunities the way some others may.
Yeah, it's incredibly important. It's incredibly important for, I'd say, two reasons, and maybe there's more, but one is fan development, right? Young people or older people who just come here and they want to engage for the first time, but also giving back to the community. So we give away nearly 2,000 tickets to every single Milwaukee Bucks game. And most of those are going to community initiatives. And we'll continue to do that. We don't have as many seats or as many games as the Brewers, so in aggregate, they probably give away more tickets than we do. But we are really, really focused on ensuring that we're giving some people the opportunity to go to games that they otherwise would have. I personally, grew up, like I said, if I was really lucky, I'd go once a year. And it was almost always through an organization. And I'm guessing some of those were comped seats at some point in time. I will say this, in high school, we used to come with my friends, and we'd have tickets in the upper bowl, and we'd spend the whole first half looking for attendance in the bombs that weren't really paying attention, and then a group of seats where it doesn't look like anyone's actually seating. So I had a lot of free upgrades at Bradley Center. I don't know if the organization was aware of that, but they upgraded me a lot.
Hello, I'm Stephen Bauer, CEO of the Guest House. We're a housing and homelessness shelter here in Milwaukee. You had me at affordable housing. So can you talk a little bit more about what you're seeing in that space and what you all think will be your levers of helping change the affordable housing conversation in Milwaukee? Yeah,
so it's not the affordable housing in general is not unique to Milwaukee. Every middle major rural market in America is chronically underhoused. So while I talk about the Deer District and all of our real estate development, the reality is we're not actually a developer. We've acquired a lot of land. We've aggregated a lot of land. We have to find real developers to help partner with us on the development of that land. So in the coming weeks with our partners at Josh Jeffers at Jeffers & Co., we'll break ground on 270 affordable housing units in downtown. Right? These are units under AMI to ensure that teachers, employees of all sorts have an ability to live downtown, to create economic impact downtown, to easily get to and from work downtown. And all of those 270 units are affordable units. So, and fortunately for Josh Jeffers, I'll speak on his behalf a little bit, there are fantastic programs available to him, leveraging new market tax credits and other things to ensure that he can actually deliver those, because it's a good, important, powerful tool and it solves a challenge and a need here. Again, that is not unique to Milwaukee. That is a problem across the country. And if we can lead the way and we can lead by example in terms of, a lot of those employees, a lot of those people that will live in those units are employees of ours. They work at the arena. So ensuring that they can live, work, and play, and that everyone can live, work, and play in the Deer District is really important to us. Good question.
Thank you for coming, Rotary. Very enlightening. Welcome home. The Equity League is unique in America. Pro sports committing to the state in a special way. We have two CEOs who are new, the Bucks and the Packers. Do you have any thoughts as to what you're planning or hope for with the Equity League? And are you going to be meeting with the Packers and the Brewers on that?
I'd be lying to you if I said I was overly familiar with it. So I need to get up to speed on the Equity League and what exactly the initiatives are. Mark Murphy and I had lunch a couple of weeks ago. The irony between Ed Policy and I is I grew up a Green Bay Packers fan, and unfortunately for this room, I converted to a Cleveland Browns fan. Ed Policy, I think, grew up a Cleveland Browns fan, and he's converted to a Packers fan. So net, we're 100% Packers fans. But I have not met with Ed. Rick and I have spent a lot of time together, and he and I, similar story, right? He grew up a Brewers fan. So for him to be able to come back and run it is special. So I have not gotten into that yet, but I can commit to you that I will look into it.
Thanks for the presentation. Chuck Radel from Town Bank. Question, and I guess, how do you handle the perceptions of load management in the NBA now? Too many stories of people going to games and all the stars are sitting when they're traveling in. People want to see them. And I guess maybe explain to people what load management is, but how do we handle that going forward as a league?
Yeah, listen, there's load management and there's tanking. Those are two separate topics. Here's what I don't think a lot of people do fully appreciate is it is a grueling season. So, last Tuesday, the Bucks played a home game. On Wednesday, they got a plane and flew to Utah. Played a game Thursday night in Utah. After the game, got on a plane, flew to Arizona. Day off, played the next day. After the game, Saturday night, went to the airport. At 12:30, the plane failed, and they all went back to a hotel in Arizona to wake up the next day to fly to Los Angeles to put up a dud last night against the Clippers. It is a grind of a season. And the interesting thing is these guys are fitter than ever before. Their bodies are unlike anything that they had for a long time. That's what a lot of people say is, in the 80s and the 90s, there was no such thing as load management. And that's true. But our goal is to also, in the 80s and 90s, the best player in the league wasn't playing until 41. LeBron James is 41 years old. So the trade-off sometimes is you lose a couple of games to ensure the long-term viability of these athletes' body. Because Michael Jordan made it to 34, 35 with no load management. So there's this trade-off. LeBron James has played more games than anybody before in an era of load management. So what's that trade-off? Longevity in terms of total years or games this year? And the league is constantly focused on initiatives to ensure that healthy players play. And that's the tanking side of it. But the science around our athletes and their bodies is unlike anything ever before. So we've got cameras in the training facility, and they can tell when our guys are operating at 90% capacity just based on their movements and how much they're jumping and how they're jumping and their sprint times. They can say, hey, give their body a break. Because we're trying to extend the useful life. And it's tricky, it's complicated, but I understand your point. If the Lakers come here to play at the Bucks and Luka doesn't play, there are going to be a lot of Luka fans in the crowd, and we can control what we can control. But I think on some level the trade-off is Luka's going to play longer. But it's hard, it's difficult. Again, going back to my own personal story when I was growing up, if I had the opportunity to go to a Bulls game and Michael Jordan didn't play because of load management, and that was the only game I was going to that year, the only potential chance I was ever going to have to see Michael Jordan in person, I would have been crushed if he didn't play. So it's fair to be upset by load management, but I don't think the criticism is totally fair or warranted.
Hi, my name is Marissa Jablonski. I'm with the Freshwater Collaborative. I'm curious if you have any environmental or sustainability goals for Fiserv. I think we're sitting on a great opportunity to have a waste-free event space, gigantic waste-free event space in Milwaukee. I know the Brewers have a program called Players for the Planet. I don't know if you've heard of that, but I'm just curious on your goals. Thanks.
One LEED Platinum arena in America. One. It's downtown Milwaukee. So it's been a focus. The hard part with all of these, and I think anyone who's in the development business, is the CapEx cost to retrofit the building sometimes. It's a lot easier. You think about the Clippers' new arena. It has a lot of the features that you're talking about, but they just built it. So when you're building a new building, it's so much easier. Just for us, if we didn't have a LEED Platinum building, to go back in time to make it certified LEED Platinum is so difficult. So our job is to find opportunities to make environmentally impactful decisions, to constantly evaluate what our options are, to lead by example. It's just important for us to help other teams who are building an arena understand what they can do to create an energy efficient business, as it is for us to continue to evolve the energy efficient nature of, because global warming doesn't just happen here. The impacts are felt around the country, around the world. So we can also lead by example. So we're going to continue to test what we can do within reason, right? What I can't commit to do is major CapEx projects that we can't afford, to tell a good story. Now, if we can make those things work in concert, if there are federal grants or other grants available to help us, improve the efficiency of the building, we'll always explore that. It's a fair question.
Hello, my name is Antoine Carter. I work at the Milwaukee Public Library Foundation, and I am still disappointed in that Ray Allen trade.
I'll pass that on to number 22.
Please. I saw the win, the fan, the community. Is there anything else that you feel personally is like a flagship idea, flagship perspective, flagship principle that you personally are looking to infuse into the Bucks?
30 seconds. Come on, man.
Oh, cool.
I think I can answer the question. Here's what Marla, Wendell, our head of community relationships, and I've talked about a lot. Again, it's not just the platform of caring about this community. And what I've said is the Milwaukee Bucks are going to show up across the state of Wisconsin. They're going to show up here at home in Milwaukee. And I, as in many ways, the face of the organization, the mathlete of the organization. I have to show up at those events. I care about showing up at those events. Josh Glessing, the person, cares deeply about Racine, deeply, deeply about Racine. I also care deeply about education, specifically public education. I believe that education is supposed to be the great equalizer in this country, and unfortunately it's the great unequalizer in this country. I went to a high school that, when I graduated, had 2,000 students in it, and currently has 1,200 students in it. And I'd say some students, or people who aren't students, are probably better off than they otherwise would have been. But a lot of those students left behind are worse off than they otherwise would have been. So I care deeply about, leveraging the platform that I have, and as a person for Josh Glessing, on behalf of Josh Glessing in a lot of ways, finding ways to impact the educational divide in our community. I don't think I'm going to solve anything, but I feel a deep sense of obligation to continue to show up in Racine, and specifically at Racine Public Schools.
Well, good afternoon. Tom Gale. When you're dealing with supersized people...
What do you do?
I sell real estate.
Oh, that would have been my third guess, but I was going to go radio. I was like, do I know you, Tom?
Well, once upon a time.
Okay.
So you're dealing with supersized people. They're not going to fit in the airplanes that we fly in. They don't fit in buses. They don't sleep in the same beds. What do you all have for those boys? I left Columbus, Ohio, and our real estate partner on a project there. They also owned a great hotel in downtown Columbus, and I'd been in the lobby 100 times, but I'd never actually stayed in a room. And a few weeks ago, I went back to Columbus, and for the first time, stayed at this hotel. So I'm guessing most of the people, I'm going to land the plane on this, I'm guessing most of the people in this room have never stayed at the Trade Hotel, because you live here, you've got your own beds here. If you were to go to the 4th floor of the Trade Hotel, those rooms are designed specifically for NBA players. The sinks are here. The shower heads are up there. The ceilings are high. So there's so many things that exist to do that. If you go to the training facility, it's the same thing. The sinks are here, the shower heads are up there. It's quite incredible. And you're right, the planes are different. So the NBA, all of the teams share the same planes. So the Bucks don't own a plane. There are a couple of teams that own their own plane. But what will happen is, if we play at Phoenix, those planes, which are designed specifically for NBA teams, they're old planes, they're 30, 40-year-old planes, but they're designed from a seating layout perspective for NBA teams. They'll drop us off in Phoenix, and then they'll go right back up to pick up the Clippers to take them to Denver in the same plane. So there's a small group of planes that are shared by all of the NBA teams that are designed for exactly that. I don't think anyone here is shopping for double XL extra tall shirts, but Nike helps us out with those too. What about the restrooms on those planes?
They're old planes. Brooke Lopez. If you're ever like looking for a reason to sympathize with some of these guys, just think about Brooke Lopez on an old 747.
Josh, thanks so much for coming today.
Thank you, everyone, for having me.